Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
Welcome to New Stripe City YouTube channel for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie. If you're new here, what we like to do here is we talk a lot about the Bengals. We do all kind of content behind the Bengals, whether it's film review, whether it's Q&A as we're doing today, which is called Q&Ace. We also do interviews and all kind of stuff. So you can definitely check that here. I am Ace Boogie of New Stripe City. We also have some new merch now available. If you look in the comments, we got the New Stripe City mugs. A lot of people said that they did like them, so we went ahead and got those. We've already got some orders coming in, but if you want yours, definitely be sure to check it out. In the description of this video, there's a direct link. It's an 11-ounce mug. It's pretty good. Got the orange handle, all kind of stuff like that. So please be sure to check it out. It definitely helps support the channel. Also know that it does include free shipping on it as well. So we tried to take that out for you and include that in the price. As I said, the link is in the description. I think it's $29 is what it comes to. $5 shipping, I think $4 in taxes, and just $22 mug. So check that out. I think my math was off there. Anyway, the first thing that I want to get to is I want to show you guys how to submit questions. The way that we submit questions on Q&Ace is through the Flick chat. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video, and then we're going to get into the questions. So this video will let you know exactly how to submit a video question. If you do submit one through the chat, it has to be super chat in order for it to get answered. But you can submit free video questions through the Flick chat. So I'll go ahead and let this play and be right back. So the first thing you're going to want to do is download the Flick Sports app from your app store. Once you do that, you're going to get prompted to log in. There's a bunch of different ways that you can log in. Choose whichever one suits you. Once you're in the app, you're going to have to add the New Stripe City Flick group. So you'll see that. You'll be able to search for it. Once you're in, you're going to want to find what is called the Q&Ace chat. Next, you'll want to read those instructions there. You want to submit a video here. You also want to give your name and where you're from, and keep it between 15 to 30 seconds. And please, no profanity. Once that's done, you'll go ahead and submit that. I will get it, and I will post your video on the show. Thank you. All right, so let's get into some of these questions, man. I've seen someone say they want the hat. Jason, I'm working on those, bro. I wanted to see what you guys thought of it. Got one going right now, as you can see, but also got the mug here as well, and it's got the orange handle on it. Yes, sir. Got the orange inside. Don't want the drink to flip over or anything like that. But we'll see, man. We definitely got the merch coming and everything for sure. So the first thing that I want to do is get into some of the questions that we had. So we had 2 video questions this week. I think it was a slow week because we were on the bye week, but we got 2 of them here. So I'm going to get into this first one real quick.
Congratulations on the show, bro. My name's Ray Will. I'm going to get right to it. I remember when Zach Taylor first got hired, and I remember Sean Payton taking a stab at him because he was a McVay connection and saying, you know, these guys are not even ready to coach and stuff. And I remember him denying all interviews of Saints coaches for him because he tried to get Aaron Glenn, if y'all remember that. So my thing is, if nobody wants to work for him, clearly he was not respected enough to be a head coach, and people want to work with him. And all he could get was Lou in a room move. And Duke Tobin stood on the table for this man. And it seemed like Duke did a lot of the bad draft picks and everything else. Does he see the door with Zach Taylor? And on top of that, where is the Blackburns in all of this?
All right, so appreciate that question there. That's a great question. I think and I think he actually, in his defense, he sent this before the actual victory. I think that definitely if Zach didn't perform or doesn't continue to perform, I think that there is a possibility that Duke should definitely be held accountable as well. The Blackburns, I think in terms of where they're at in all of this, they're part of the ownership, right? So I think you will see Mike Brown's daughter, Katie Blackburn, and her husband. I think that they're definitely involved in that decision making and whether or not things in terms of controlling how things would go moving forward. So I think definitely you would have to see Duke held accountable there. But with the recent win and depending on how they do after this bye week, I think that will really determine everything. I think Zach at this point can really do some things to kind of save his job, especially with that Titans win. They come out of this bye week, they play some tougher teams. I think that saves him. I think Duke tried to make at least an effort in free agency to get some of the new guys in there. When you talk about DJ Reader, Trey Waynes, Mackenzie Alexander, he went out and spent money. It just didn't work out because guys essentially got hurt. But when you look at this draft class, he did an amazing job in that area. When you talk about Joe Burrow, which kind of was a layup pick, but then he went back and got T. Higgins. Then he got Logan Wilson, Khalid Kareem. A lot of these guys have had some valuable snaps there. So it may be a bounce back kind of thing for Duke. And then he also went out and grabbed Quentin Spain and made the trade of Carlos Dunlap for another lineman. So depending on how that goes, Duke may have done enough to show his job. We also have another question from my guy as well. So he sent in two. So I appreciate you on that, bro. And if you guys want to be seen on these videos, definitely add your videos into the chat. We would love to have the actual videos of you guys on there. Now, one thing that I didn't tell you guys to watch out for is make sure that the mic is at least clear enough. I'm sorry, for us to be able to hear you. It was a little muffled, but I was able to hear it and everything. But I know people are going to complain about that moving forward, but appreciate it anyway, bro. And that's my fault because I didn't tell you guys about that. So when you do send in your video, please make sure that you try to make sure that the mic isn't covered. So that's on me, not on him. So we'll go ahead and get into his second one here. And this came after.
Hey, we got to win, a great win, but I don't want to be the Debbie Downer because I'm super happy. But what does this say to me? I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said this was even more of an indictment on our coaching staff that 4 out of the 5 guys starting were cut this year. And Auden Tate was a healthy scratch for most of the year or some of the games. And to me, it was like we didn't realize this until their backs were against the wall. So are we really sitting here trying to give credit to people that actually said time and time again, y'all trash, we really don't want y'all to play? Or was it that the players just went out there and wanted to win? Or is it a mixture of both? But to me, I just feel like it's an indictment on this staff that y'all actually sat there and looked at these players and said, nah, y'all ain't it. Auden, you ain't it.
So I think that's a great question that he has there, right? Basically, I don't know if you guys could hear it fully with the volume and everything, but essentially what he said was, are we giving the coaches too much credit for the performance that happened in the Titans game? Obviously, they kind of told us that the guys that came in from the offensive line perspective and from the Auden Tate perspective that they weren't good enough to be starters. And then it wasn't until we had no choice but to play them that they performed. I think that it could be a mixture of both. I think that it could definitely be that you saw something in Adeniji and all of these other guys, and you wish that you would have gotten a chance to see it sooner, right? But it also could be that Jim Turner and his coaching staff have also been working well with them. And I think that it came out that Zach Taylor himself looked at the plays last week in the week prior to that game and said that Auden Tate needed to get more snaps. He's been looking at the numbers and trying to tweak things. So I think it's a combination of both, right? They didn't do a great job of evaluating the talent, but I will have to slide them some bail on that one. They didn't have a preseason to have those evaluations. So they kind of had to go into this season just with the guys that they thought were going to be the guys. And obviously with them not having really a preseason, you can kind of look at some of these games that have come through this season as sort of those preseason moments. But without them having that in games that didn't count, they felt like I feel that they had to go with the guys that they did instead of taking a risk. But again, the offensive line gave up 0 sacks. So maybe it was a product of the coaching staff overlooking those guys. So I think I would definitely say it was a mixture of both. So I also got a super chat here. Appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this question. This is the only way that you can ask or present questions for this video through YouTube. The other way that you can do it for free is through the Flick Chat. So if you join the Flick Chat is completely free. Everything there is free, honestly. It just takes time. It just costs time. So if you sign up for that, you don't have to give me all of your information or your firstborn or any of that. You sign up. It's very easy. Go to your app store and insert Flick. That's Flick. And it's the Flick Sports app. And then you have to join the new Stripe City one. You also can be entered into the Xbox giveaway. I'm trying to give away this Xbox. Apparently, you guys don't want it. The Xbox drops next Tuesday, so I will have it next Tuesday. But if you want to have it by next Wednesday, Thursday, or whenever, you have to sign up for that. And the instructions for that is on my Twitter channel. That is at New Stripe City on Twitter. So be sure to check that out. The other thing is I'm also giving away $50 for anyone randomly in the Flick Chat once we get to 500 members. So we have that. And then they're also giving away, if I'm not mistaken, $100 to, I believe, someone who randomly enters one of their surveys that they're getting. So Flick Chat is a cool app for all of those that are in here. They can vouch for it. It's a very cool thing. What they like to do is like to go live on game days. I kind of post in there. Fans get to talk with each other in there. Obviously, since it's a bye week, probably not going to be as much activity, but there are other chats that we have in there. So we just did a Thursday night live football chat last night. I think we also have like a video games one. So feel free to check it out for sure. But let me go ahead and get into this one. It comes from Anthony Tyler. He says, what are your thoughts on the next week game for the rest of the season? And do you think that we could make a real push? And who should we get in the 2021 draft? So a couple questions here by Anthony. I'm going to start off with your first one. What are my thoughts on next week's game? I haven't done my preview yet. I haven't gotten into it. But if you do follow my other YouTube channel, the AFC North Talk, where it's a group of AFC North YouTubers, I talked about it a little bit. And I also talked about it on the Cincy Jungle Super Show that we did with all of the Cincy Jungle staff that we have. And I kind of touched on it a little bit there as well. I would probably say my thoughts on next week's game, I'm somewhat confident. Now, that's just trying to be somewhat cautiously optimistic. The fact that we're going to get 2 weeks to prepare for this Steelers team, I think gives this staff and the players enough time to kind of prep, and they'll at least this weekend also be able to scout and watch the games themselves to understand what the chinks are in the Pittsburgh armor. The one thing that makes me worried about it, though, is all of our starting offensive linemen were hurt. What does that mean during this week off for them? I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if that means that those guys are still going to play like they did in the Titans game, which I think there is, even though they did not give up any sacks, there were some areas in that game where they didn't play well. So being that Pittsburgh has one of the best pass rushes in the NFL, that scares me. I'm not going to lie to you guys. A few weeks ago, I didn't even want to live stream that game and watch it play by play and do all of that because of what happened to us against Baltimore. They're going to bring the blitz. That's what Pittsburgh does. I'm also worried about them offensively from a receiving standpoint with us having injuries in the secondary. So I am glad and I'm more confident now seeing what we saw after the Titans game, knowing that we have the rest to recuperate some of those guys and make moves and make adjustments. So I'm at least enough confident to say that I think that the Bengals could potentially, with this momentum that they have going on right now, could possibly do something, whether that's just splitting the game. But I talked about it at the end of that stream. This is an important game. This is a very important game because the Bengals face several weaker opponents after the Pittsburgh game. So if they want any kind of momentum, being at the fact that they went 2-5-1, they have to try to do something here, right? And I don't even know if I'm saying the right record at this point. I've noticed that I've been saying the wrong record. So let me check our actual record because it really has been somewhat of a whirlwind. So let me just make sure that I'm saying the right record here because I've just been spewing that off. So let me get back to it. So we're in week 9. 2-5-1. I'm sorry. I don't know where I was saying that other stuff from. So 2-5-1, right? So if they can win this game and win the other games and win possibly their next 4, that would be great. That would be great. Not realistic, but would be great. And so, and that kind of segues into the answer for the rest of the season. I think that they could do some stuff there. Let's see if they could potentially win 6 out of their next 8. You're talking about a team that could potentially be in an 8 playoff format. If they do that, they might have a chance of actually making that. So we'll have to see. All right. So far, that's all we have for those questions. We'll get back to the Flick Chat because I have some more questions there. We only had 2 video questions today. Let me take a look at our other ones here. Let's see. All right. So we have one from Mahomeless. He asks, is BJ Finney, if BJ Finney and Spain perform better than Trey Hopkins and Redmond, could they start overtime in the long run? So one thing that I will say to this question is, and I think that this was also one that came in before the game. This happened before Billy Price had the game that he did. And I talked on the Cincy Jungle pregame show with my guy, Matt Minnick. If you're not following him on Twitter, be sure to follow him at Coach Minnick. We talked about Billy Price, and I talked about him being a very important part of that Titans game. Being that he was the center, the quarterback for the offensive line, I felt like it was on him to make sure that these guys who had never really been in there outside of Alex Redmond needed to be in position. I think when it comes to that, I think that it's going to be hard to see based off of how Billy Price played in that game, whether or not Hopkins can come back and assume that role. Now, Hopkins is one of the best Bengals offensive linemen, so that's going to be a tough one there. I probably still see them having Trey Hopkins as a starter. I think that Billy Price might be able to vie for some spot on that line, but we'll have to see. Obviously, he's handled coming off of the bench and being in that reserve role the right way. So we'll have to see. I think that they definitely like his depth there and the fact that he can go from center to guard. Alex Redmond, I think that Spain is actually probably more of a threat, believe it or not, to Michael Jordan. That's what he played in the last game, was the left guard. Some presume that he could potentially play the right guard. I think Alex Redmond has played pretty solid. So I would probably say that Spain could definitely get a chance to come in. BJ Finney, I don't think we know anything about him. I think that he would definitely be a good reserve option. But outside of that, I think that that's what you're looking for. In terms of the long term, Billy Price is probably going next year, I think. And so you'd probably have Spain possibly fighting for one of those spots long term. BJ Finney, maybe. We'll have to see. I don't know if BJ Finney, like the terms of his contract or anything like that. And someone asked, does BJ Finney have an injury history? I believe he does, but he was somewhat solid, at least for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was a career backup essentially, but he is a guy that can come in and start in a pinch. Definitely similar to what we had last week happen. So BJ Finney, I think, could potentially be a piece of that puzzle. I think right now you just got to get as many assets as you can at that position, being that it's pretty much the weakness of this team, even though they only gave up 0 sacks. So we'll have to see about that there. We have another one from Seismic Sterum who asks, do we need to get edge rushers via free agency, trade, or the draft? I think it's a combination of both. I think the first thing that you have to do before you even get to free agency, you have to extend Carl Lawson. Obviously, he's the best edge rusher that we have at this point, especially with Carlos Dunlap not being there anymore. And, of course, I think free agency, if the price is right? Because free agency is tough. But you have to remember a few years ago that they had a free agent deal in process with Shaq Barrett. And it wasn't for an expensive price, but he ended up going to Tampa because Tampa was able to offer him more money due to no state tax there. That's always a factor when you're going and competing against teams in Texas, teams in Florida. But if you were able to get a Shaq Barrett a few years ago for a bargain, that would have been crazy. So if you can find something like that in free agency, obviously, that's not something that always happens. But if you can find someone like that in free agency, I definitely think you look at it. The draft is going to be your cheapest route, right? The draft is going to give you the lowest cost at that position. Even if it's in the first round, it's still going to be the cheapest spot for you. But I think it's hard to get a premium edge rusher in the later rounds. But this is a draft that has more edge rushers than previous years. So I would probably say maybe you can get one in the second round. That's a pretty solid kind of guy there. So I think if you do get into the draft, maybe you do that. But it's going to be hard to say, right? Because the good thing is now we actually have college football games being played. The season is back, but there were some guys that opted out. So how does that affect things? And then you also have to look at the fact that you have the Senior Bowl guys opted in who opted out there. But I wouldn't be opposed to taking a dip and making a splash in all three, because if you don't have Carl Lawson, that's going to be a problem. And Carl Lawson could count as that free agency piece. And I think that he should be a guy that they re-sign, as his ceiling is definitely ascending. So we have another one here from my guy, Daniel McConaughey. I hope that I'm saying that right, bro. If not, I apologize. I hate when people say my name wrong. But I appreciate you, bro. He's got a $10 super chat here. And he said, facts are Titans had the second least sacks on the season with 7. We played exactly the same as any other game minus the Ravens. Just the best matchup we could face. Thoughts? I have to agree with you on that one, bro. I think one thing that we kind of got carried away from when we talk about how bad the offensive line is or how good they looked, you have to remember that we also didn't get sacked in, I believe, that Jacksonville game. And the next week we were in for a big surprise against the Ravens. This is something that's very similar to that. The Titans aren't good at rushing the passer at all. I've always talked about how the guy that they got over there, Clowney, is overrated. I've never been a believer in Clowney. He's not really a premium edge rusher. Obviously, they just released Vic Beasley. They didn't have a good defense. It definitely was a good matchup, but I do have to say that I do feel like the Titans were still a good team, right? I think that the Bengals still did their thing, came out, fought hard, outplayed them, were able to hold on to a lead, and I think it definitely was one of the good matchups. So I think that going into this next game, I think that that's probably something that they have to be prepared for, and we should be bracing ourselves for. Is we're not going to see what we saw against the Titans edge rush wise. This is going to be the team that has the most sacks in the league that's coming in. So that's something that you guys have to prepare yourselves for. So before I get out of here, for you guys that may have just joined, before the show, I showed that we have the new Stripe City mugs. If you do want to purchase one, the link for it is in the description. We do have some merch and stuff coming. There's a limited stock on these. So if you do act on these, please act as fast as possible. They already include the shipping price and everything like that. So we tried to look out for you guys on that end. And I appreciate all the support. And definitely we'll be doing this more often. So next week, we'll definitely be doing this again. Be sure to submit your questions through the Flick. Hopefully you can send those through video. We truly appreciate that. I want to show you guys off on this segment. That's the whole point. I want you guys to join me here, be able to participate. And if you post a video message, I'm going to definitely post it in here. As long as you don't use any profanity or anything like that, we're good to go. But thank you guys for enjoying Q&Ace. I'm Ace Boogie. And as usual, we'll leave you guys with a who day, all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
So the first thing you're going to want to do is download the Flick Sports app from your app store. Once you do that, you're going to get prompted to log in. There's a bunch of different ways that you can log in. Choose whichever one suits you. Once you're in the app, you're going to have to add the New Stripe City Flick group. So you'll see that. You'll be able to search for it. Once you're in, you're going to want to find what is called the Q&Ace chat. Next, you'll want to read those instructions there. You want to submit a video here. You also want to give your name and where you're from and keep it between 15 to 30 seconds. And please, no profanity. Once that's done, you'll go ahead and submit that. I will get it and I will post your video on the show. Thank you.